I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered on the traditional territory of the signatories to Treaty 7 and acknowledge the Métis people of Alberta who share a deep connection and history with the land. 12 days ago, the Premier of Alberta deliberately sabotaged a booming industrial sector of our economy. At a time when Albertans are paying unprecedented electricity prices and struggling with unprecedented wildfires, Danielle Smith blocked construction of more than a dozen new, low-cost, low-emission power projects. She destroyed thousands of jobs in Alberta and blocked billions in new investment. She gave workers and investors exactly zero notice that any of this was coming. Danielle Smith may have permanently damaged the reputation of Alberta as a responsible and mature jurisdiction to invest in. Many Albertans are asking a very simple question. Why is the UCP doing this? All of the answers we got from Danielle Smith yesterday were lies. Let's go through them. First, Smith claimed that the Alberta Utilities Commission wrote to the government and requested a 6-month halt. That isn't true. The letter she referenced says no such thing. The letter says, quote, effective resolution necessarily requires a dedicated period of engagement with all stakeholders identified above, followed by government direction, either in the form of provincial policy or new legislation. That's a request for stakeholder engagement. Governments routinely do engagement and regulatory reviews. They do so without shutting down an entire industry. The letter does not request a halt or a pause or a moratorium. This is immediately obvious to anyone who has read it. Any claim to the contrary is a lie, one told by Danielle Smith. Next, Smith claimed the Alberta Electric System Operator, the AESO, requested the pause. This one is also a lie. The AESO letter clearly says, thank you for telling us about the moratorium. We will follow the direction. No request, no praise for the idea. All of that is a pure fabrication by Smith. And there's more. As Dr. Andrew Leach at the University of Calgary first pointed out, there are timeline inconsistencies. Michael Law, the president of the Alberta Electric System Operator, wrote to Nathan Neudorf thanking him for the heads up about the moratorium. The letter is dated July 21st and was signed on July 20th. That's 2 weeks before the moratorium was announced publicly. Danielle Smith and Nathan Neudorf knew they were going to halt more than a dozen industrial projects for at least 2 weeks. But they did no consultation in that time. They made no attempt to learn about the impacts of their decision or to talk to anyone. Nathan Neudorf claimed he was unable to meet with the renewable industry leaders in Alberta or people considering investing here because of scheduling glitches. What kind of scheduling glitch could prevent a single meeting in 2 weeks? That's a pretty tall tale. The message sent to investors and to the business community is clear. The rules and processes in Alberta can and do change overnight with no notice. And the UCP government has absolutely no qualms when it comes to lying about the reasons for those changes. It's a poisonous message to send to investors around the world, and we know that it will have detrimental effects. Who knows what explanation Smith will come up for the moratorium with today? If there really was a regulatory justification for the moratorium, Smith would be willing to have that conversation publicly. We clearly can't take her word for anything, so let's convene a hearing. Capital landowners with projects on their land. Most importantly, I think we need to hear from the workers, the people whose jobs Danielle Smith dismissed out of hand with no regard at all. I was really disgusted by Smith's answer when a reporter asked what she had to say to those Albertans whose jobs she had shut down for 6 months. She just shrugged and said, "It's 6 months." That's an insult to those hardworking Albertans. These Albertans want to work. They want to do the jobs that they had until Smith took them away. They want to build these power projects, and Albertans need them to build the power projects. Danielle Smith's actions are going to delay the introduction of thousands of megawatts of low-cost electricity. Her decisions will drive up the price for Alberta families and for businesses. Blocking these renewable power plants will also contribute to emissions that will damage our environment. Danielle Smith and the UCP are hurting our economy, and they can't even explain why. Enough is enough. It's time for the UCP's ban on renewable energy projects to end before irreversible damage is done to investor confidence. This is about securing our economic future. This is about supporting the working people of Alberta who are looking for a plan to create good-paying jobs now and into the future. Alberta can be a leader in all forms of energy, but not with this incompetent government standing in the way. Thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions.
Okay, we'll start with questions in person, then go to questions online.
What are Albertans telling you after yesterday's press conference?
Well, I think people are extremely skeptical about the reasons that she's given. You know, first she claimed it was a letter from the AUC, which clearly doesn't ask for a moratorium or a pause or anything of the sort. Then she claimed it was from the ASO, but their letter is essentially a thank you for telling us letter. So it's pretty clear that the reasons that have been given are not the actual reasons. And if you're going to block investment in a province, and particularly if you're going to block it in this way, this is something that's going to send shocks throughout the investment world, right? When investors are looking about what jurisdiction to put their money in, one of the first things they're going to consider is whether the rules are going to suddenly change and make their investment worthless. While this is exactly that sort of situation where the rules have suddenly changed, and that has a huge impact on investment. So I think people are concerned, and I think they're confused, and I think they're owed an explanation.
Danielle Smith yesterday about the layoffs, because the companies will find business elsewhere. But what about the people, the Albertans that she's fighting for with Ottawa? What is going to happen to them? They'll be laid off. They won't have anything to do. How will they survive in this inflation? What does NDP has to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that was the most problematic answer amongst a series of extremely problematic answers in her press conference yesterday. You know, these are real people trying to support their families, trying to survive in an inflationary crisis. And, you know, her response to here are people who are probably going to lose their jobs was, oh, well, it's only 6 months. I mean, can any of us 6 months at this point? I think it just shows a government that's completely out of touch with what's happening in the lives of everyday Albertans, and that really doesn't seem to understand that they're here to represent those Albertans, not just, you know, far right. That more interties is probably a good thing, particularly here in Alberta. We don't have the same kind of hydro resources that they necessarily do in other provinces. So advocating